Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek. I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Addict new release roundup. If you're new here, welcome. What we do is we go back and forth, talk about the latest home video releases, the good, the bad, the ugly, but we have a really good time talking about them. But I am going to let you start this party off.
I appreciate it. I have a stacked slate, and I'm very excited to dig into it. I'm going to start off with one of two I have from our overseas friends at Imprint, the Australian. This is one of the first releases from Imprint Asia. This is The Blind Swordsman Zatoichi. So just for those who are new, the Imprint is an Australian label that can be played in Blu-ray players the world around, so you don't have to worry about that. It is region free, so you can import this without having to worry. This is based on a character that I believe was first established in the 60s, the character Zatoichi. There is a really nice box set from the Criterion Collection that I have, and this is kind of an update on the character that was released, I believe, in 2003. And I haven't made it through that big set of just like many films from the past, but from what I've seen, there's some consistency with this version of the character, but there's a lot of changes as well. Basically, he is a blind swordsman who just kind of like basically roams the countryside and gets into like trouble. Usually seems to find him. He's very even keeled and just kind of, he has a sense of humor about him, but this iteration of the character just finds him at the beginning having some soldiers challenge him on the road and then like underestimate him and then getting their asses beat and sliced open and stuff like that. But then he gets taken in by this woman who comes upon him, and he kind of gets embroiled in this kind of community evil presence. Like there's like an evil kind of warlord type person who's been like meddling in the community, and like there's some people that like are going undercover trying to get revenge on them, and he's just kind of in the middle of all this kind of chaos, and all the while he's very like a calm person who is just like, he seems kind of otherworldly in what he is able to do without sight. Like he just kind of can like his other senses are enhanced, which there's some things with that the movie kind of plays with that I wasn't the biggest fan of. But overall, if you kind of like the classic like blind swordsman, like there's kind of been various iterations beyond just the Zatoichi franchise. If you kind of like that standard tale, this is kind of another good installment that was made through imported by Miramax in the early 2000s. There are things that I do not like about how they handle the character though, and this has some of the worst CGI blood that I've seen. I think that they would have made it practical, it would have been a lot like more rewarding picture, but it is digital blood. And I've seen some reviews say that it was like intentional and kind of like some kind of commentary from the director, like his intention behind it. I don't think it really worked if that was the like trying to kind of blow up the genre or whatever. Because he also does some other stylistic things, like even like a musical number at the end, which is kind of strange. But that's actually one of my favorite parts of the movie. But I think in terms of like this character, it is kind of lower on the totem pole. It's a good movie, but it's just kind of a little bit underwhelming. And I think there's a little bit of disrespect to the legacy that I didn't quite dig. So it's a little bit of a mixed emotions, but overall positive. This has been released on Blu-ray a few times in the US for our US viewers. It's been released through originally Miramax through Disney, and then through Lionsgate, and then through Paramount. So I think it's been pretty consistently since like the late 2000s, like 2008 or so, been released on Blu-ray a couple times. Now this is being released in Australia in this kind of special edition. What Unfortunately, it seems like they're still using the same dated master that they've always had. So it's a really kind of rough looking master. It's HD, but like you can tell it's kind of a DVD era master. You do get quite a bit of softness and like little specks of damage here and there, which this movie is just really in need of a remaster. But I think given the territory rights and this being a Miramax title, I think it might be difficult to get everyone to agree that this needs a restoration and like have the Japanese like rights holders agree and all this stuff. So this is what we have for now. If you do own this previously, what you're getting with this is a new commentary track from film historian Sean Redman, which was recorded earlier this year, and then they do carry over all the special features, which I believe were on the previous U.S. Blu-rays, but I don't have them to double check, and I forgot to seek out reviews for those. But you do get a 40-minute making of archival featurette, and then 39 minutes of interviews. Also, one thing I wanted to note, because I know some people really don't like this, this has the original Japanese audio, but it has forced English subtitles, so there's no option to turn the English subtitles off. I know most people like to have optional subtitles, so if that bothers you, this release does have burned in forced subtitles. Well, not burned in, but forced subtitles. The package, if you're in the US and you already own this, you have to decide if the commentary track is enough. And it's a pretty good commentary track, but it could be a lot to import just for that. But if you're overseas, like in Australia, or you just like want to be a completionist, this is a pretty decent release. It's just it's really in need of a remaster. So I have mixed feelings about this. It's a good enough release, but they were kind of limited with the source. So the Blind Swordsman, Zatoichi, a bit of a mixed bag release wise.
Yeah, that sounds like some room for improvement, but at least we have it out there. My first title is one that was really fun because I hadn't seen this in a while, and I specifically was holding off for a 4K release, and that is Mean Girls.
Yes.
And we got the burn book cover here, and I really like that this is pink. So that's cool. So special features. I don't think there's anything. Oh no, there is a new featurette. Sorry, I was gonna say I didn't think there was anything poured over. Disc and digital copy is not in there, but if you order one, you will have one. But revisiting this was really fun. I I mean, I've seen this a few times, but it's probably been a couple years since I've watched it. So it was like I watched this and the new one almost back to back. And yeah, I think it holds up. There's definitely some like dated stuff that interestingly enough, I think the new version handles a lot better. I'll get into which one I prefer, but I think that each one has its pros and cons. But yeah, this is a really fun movie. I think like Lindsay Lohan is great in this. And I hope she's making a comeback. Seems like she's kind of doing that. But yeah, hilarious. I mean, Tina Fey is great. Amy Poehler in this is also awesome. It's so quotable. I can't imagine anyone not having seen this or at least by osmosis have at least knows a lot about it. But yeah, it's hilarious. Again, it's cool that they have a like queer character, but I think again, I'll get into why I think the newer one handles that better. But yeah, for it's actually not as like dated as I kind of thought it was going to be. So I think that really hits home like Tina Fey's like brand of humor is for the most part kind of timeless. Like easily these jokes can transfer over to the newer one, and in some cases they literally did. So and then we got to see Mean Girls the musical on stage. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, the transfer is really nice. I had not owned this previously. Again, I was like holding off on a Blu-ray because I figured a 4K was on the horizon. But from doing a little research, it looks like this is like quite a nice step up between this and the Blu-ray. Colors really pop. This is a very visual movie, so it's nice because I don't feel like everything was sort of like over digitized or overtly like cleaned up, like some of the releases we've talked about. So it really retains that nice natural kind of look. It doesn't look like overly scrubbed, in my opinion. Like yeah, I don't know. I mean, I couldn't really find a lot of fault with it. It's yeah, it's good. Sounds good. Again, you do get a little bit of new material, not a lot, but it's nice that they also ported over everything else. So again, I hadn't owned this previously. So if you're like me, you'll have all the old stuff, and I guess just the featurettes new for here for this one. But yeah, I love this. I love this case. The J card, I think it really surprisingly holds up, and it's a pretty good release.
Awesome. Yeah, that one's a definite favorite in our household. I've seen it many, many times and is quoted quite a bit. And I know my wife is especially ready to watch this on Mean Girls Day in October. But I, of
October
course,
3rd, right?
yeah, yeah, I believe so. So I'm very excited I'm going to watch it on my own to review it, but I'm excited to rewatch that with her because we just had it on DVD. I saw it in theaters and bought the DVD, I think pretty much the first day it was out. And I'd never upgraded it to Blu-ray. I've been also waiting for it to hit 4K because I waited so long to get to Blu-ray. I'm like, it's inevitable that it'll come out. And I'm glad it's finally here because I've been wanting to revisit it quite badly. So I'm really glad that it finally got a 4K. My next title is another one from Australia. It is through Via Vision, which is under the imprint family. This is the Firestarter Collection. So this has kind of like a lenticular cover art, which I really like. It's a nice sturdy box. Here's the J card here that comes off, and then here's underneath. So and so this comes with some art cards. I believe it's 6 art cards, which I'll show off here. There's some from the sequel, Firestarter 2 Rekindled, and then some from the original Drew Barrymore film. So it's there we go. So we got those 6 cards, and then got a standard Blu-ray case with both the original and the sequel on Blu-ray. And I like this. Has like a nice like clear slide or like flip case, which I think is pretty cool. And then so the second film is there. I'm not going to go too deep into kind of the lore. I think people know a bit about Firestarter, Starfire. Firestarter. It's based on a Stephen King source material. It was an early starring vehicle for Drew Barrymore, and it involves like a little girl that has like a kind of a telekinetic link to fire, and it's all stemming from this program where people like this organization like experimented on people, and just like her and her dad on the run from like this shady agency and all the mischief that goes down. And that the original Firestarter is a movie that I think it's really it's good. It's a little bit long, I believe. Just like I feel like it could have been tightened up a little bit. I do think it's a really entertaining movie. It's just when compared to certain other Stephen King adaptations, it's not the best. But I say it's like a really solid adaptation, and I think visually, like especially with the practical fire effects and like the pyrotechnics and stuff, I think it's a really interesting movie. And Drew Barrymore is the reason to tune in for me. I think she's like a really great child performer. I think also as an adult, but like in this, she's very good. And it's a movie I like, but I don't completely love it, but it's still a solid movie. That movie is readily available in the US, and I'll kind of get into that. The reason I was excited about this collection is for Firestarter 2 Rekindled. This is making its worldwide Blu-ray debut. So this is the only way to have this on Blu-ray at the moment. This was a mini series from the early 2000s, which did not have Drew Barrymore, but it followed an adult version of her character that kind of picks up in the intervening years. She's like college age. She is still trying to like control her kind of abilities, while the shady agency is kind of emerged and wanting to draw her in again. And first one is kind of a horror thriller. This one leans almost into like being a superhero kind of mini series a little bit. It's a really long mini series, like 3 hours, I believe, or a little over 3 hours. And you get a lot more of the people that this kind of organization has experimented on. So I believe the lead character's name is Charlie. She gets she runs across a bunch of different people with different telekinetic adjacent powers. And I think that's pretty like an interesting way to continue this, and just kind of some of the people that she runs into along the way. And you kind of don't always know where people fall, if they're friend or foe. I think it maintains its pace pretty well over the 3-hour-ish runtime. It's a 2-part miniseries, so it's broken into 2 parts. I believe it aired on this Sci-Fi Channel. It definitely doesn't have like the budget of the original Firestarter, but I think it doesn't really devolve into using like CGI fire, so it still looks pretty impressive. As far as miniseries go, it's not great, but it's pretty entertaining, all things considered. And I would say it's better. Like I talked about the Shining miniseries adaptation like about a month ago, whenever it came out on Blu-ray. I would say this is better than that, in my opinion. Overall, I think, especially since they weren't exactly trying to recreate the original Firestarter story, they went beyond the Stephen King source material and just went on their own wacky way. So I kind of admire that a little bit more. Even if it's not perfect, I think it's interesting. In terms of this release, as I mentioned, this is available on Blu-ray in a few different iterations in the US, including a Blu-ray from Scream Factory, which I do own. I would say that this disc is pretty in line with that one. It comes from a little bit of a dated transfer, but I believe it's newer than the one that was on the old Universal Blu-ray. It's good, not great, that you can see its age. And if there's one thing I could say about this set is I can almost guarantee, I don't know for sure, but I can almost guarantee that this will probably be getting a 4K release from Scream Factory in the next year or two, just based on kind of their output as of late. They're pretty much going back to all their bigger and even not so big titles and giving them 4K releases. So if Firestarter doesn't get a 4K release in the next few years, I will be shocked. That does not mean that this isn't a valuable set, because you do get Firestarter 2. And that one doesn't have any special features on it. The original Firestarter, I believe it carries pretty much all the special features over from the Scream Factory disc, which includes a director commentary, a 53-minute documentary, and a 17-minute interview with the composer from Tangerine Dream, along with like a brief piece where he performs Charlie's theme from the movie. But in addition to that, you also get a new commentary track from some film historians, which is actually really helpful, because the director commentary track has a lot of dead air, but the new film historian commentary track is very lively. You get a lot of really great information. I believe one of the people is Daniel Kramer, if I remember correctly. No, it's Lee Gambin. So sorry, apologies to Lee. Lee Gambin is also a really good commentary. So he does a good job with Aaron Dries. They give a new commentary track. In terms of the audiovisual for Firestarter 2, this says, I don't have direct knowledge of the source that they were using, but they said that it was upscaled to high definition, which, given some of these old miniseries and kind of the problems that have been associated with them, I assume that they didn't have access to maybe a camera negative. That being said, it actually looks very nice. I would put it on par with the Shining miniseries that I was just mentioning that came out on Blu-ray, which did have most of its film elements. And It doesn't even have the downturns that that one did because I had some special effects weirdness that I had to deal with. This one is actually pretty consistent, and if it's just an upscale to HD, it's a very good one. So I was surprised by how well, given my expectations of hearing that it was an upscale, it looks very nice in HD. And if it's the only way fans will be able to own this in HD, I think it works very well, and I was very impressed. So the Firestarter Collection, you get pretty nice packaging, the art cards, and you get the only way to own Firestarter 2 on Blu-ray. So overall, while it would be perfect if it had the 4K of the first one, it's still a really good collection from Via Vision, and I think it's worth checking out, especially if you really want to own that sequel miniseries. I think it's worth importing.
Nice. I have not seen the second one. I kind of like the first one. I know a friend of mine, Green, he was the DP on the new one, and
Okay.
so I definitely want to check it out for that. But
I think it
I
might be
hope,
on Peacock if you want to try before you buy the second
yeah,
one. So check that one. I might be wrong, but I think I saw that it was streaming there.
yeah, that's probably what I'll do. Because I've heard mixed to not good things, but we'll see. So my next title is one that connects with the last title I talked about, which is the new Mean Girls on 4K. And there's the back. It's too bad we didn't get like an all pink case again. Disc. Same with this. The digital code is not in there, but if you order it, you will have one. So yeah, I had not seen this before at all. I tried to also not really read a lot about it or reviews or anything, but I, for the most part, really liked it. I thought the songs were good. Good, not great. Again, I've seen this on stage and it's really good. But even that's like been a while. We saw they were doing their previews in DC where they preview it before Broadway. So I think like the cast is really good. Something that I alluded to in my last review was I think that they handle the queer characters a lot better. There is, oh my God, I'm blanking on her name, but not Damien, but the other, like,
Janice?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I like in this, she is more explicitly queer, where she's only kind of sort of queer coded, but then at the end of just like JK when she dates a guy at the end. So I do like how they kind of handled that a little bit better. They gave Damien a little bit of a love interest at the end, which is definitely a lot more than we got in the first one. The first one, he's just like the gay best friend that is sassy, which is valid, but it shouldn't be everything. And I know it's not really his story, so that's an improvement, I think. Some people didn't like the how they use like social media as like sort of a framing device for a few scenes, but I like that. I think that was really cool. I really like that they got rid of the coach sleeping with one of the students subplot that like did not need to be in there, and evidently they agreed it didn't need to be in the new one. It's very icky. Like and you know, in the original it's sort of played as like a joke, but I like it. I like that like some of the other Mean Girls get a little bit more depth in this as well. So yeah, I really liked it. Again, maybe some of the songs were great. Like the Regina George song is obviously the best one, in my opinion. Now, I know you've seen this, right? Like,
I haven't seen the new one yet, no.
what? It's so good. No, it's really fun. We do get a nice array of special features, which I appreciate. I know you do too. It's nice when like they don't just plop a release out here. We get a some featurettes. We have some deleted scenes, a music video, a gag reel, which you know y'all know is one of my favorites. You can do like a select a song. You have like a sing along thing that's really fun. So it is a really nice incentive to try to get maybe younger people into physical media by adding some of those cool stuff. So yeah, I really liked it. It's not perfect, but I would say this is definitely on par with the original. I might even slightly prefer this to the original. They both have again, they both have their pros and cons, but really solid. This makes a really nice sort of double feature. And I'm just super happy to own both of these. So I think both releases are really excellent.
Yeah, I'm probably going to try to catch that this weekend. It's definitely on the docket. I only got it 2 days ago. Sorry, I didn't watch it yet. I've had a lot to watch. But yeah, I'm really interested in that one, especially since it's not just a direct remake.
Yeah.
We have the musical elements, so I'm anxious to see how that turned out. So, like I said, I watched a bunch of movies, and that extends to my next title, which is from Lionsgate. That is the Red Collection, exclusively at Walmart. It includes the 2 Red films starring Bruce Willis, before he started going down the direct-to-video rabbit hole, and then the sad diagnosis that he had. But we'll keep things light because this is one of the better Bruce Willis projects that kind of transpired before that. I really like the packaging of this because they don't stack disc. You have like the flipping, but this also has a clear flipper, which I like. But I'll take out the disc so you can kind of see the underneath artwork. I had seen the original Red in theaters back in 2010. I don't think I ever got around to the second one. Let's see if you can see here. Here, that's one side. That's the other side. So I definitely wanted to check this out, check the second one out finally. And so this was kind of the perfect collection for me. For those who don't know, Red stands for retired and extremely dangerous. It's a spy franchise, like ex like CIA people like that have like retired, but they're still kind of trying to reckon with their place of formerly being like all up in the action and like assassinating people and just like doing all this cool shit. And they're suddenly start like just like, hey, you're retired. But Bruce Willis, like he gets kind of entangled in this thing with his former agency where there's someone who wants to take all these people out for reasons. Hint, hint. They're bad people infiltrating them, but they want to take out all the retired agents, and this kind of leads to kind of this big action bacchanal of just like Bruce Willis getting with some of his old teammates like Morgan Freeman and John Malkovich and Helen Mirren. And then in the second one, which isn't quite as good as the first one, but still is passable, you get new characters played by like Anthony Hopkins in there as well. And some other like Monica Bellucci shows up. So if you like kind of like a good mixture of like action and comedy, this is actually developed from a comic. It's based on a DC property. It doesn't quite have an unhinged energy of like a Kingsman film, but you're along the same vibes if you're along like that. So if you like your spy with a bit of humor and like some older actors getting to kick ass still, it's a lot of fun. It's a fun franchise, and I like the discovery, like the discovering of the world of the first one, which the second one's kind of lacking because you already kind of know these characters and they just kind of get mixed up in a different kind of mission that kind of they get involved in. But it's fun. It's just a little bit of a step down from the first one. But I like both of these films, and I'm glad to own them on 4K. These have both been previously released individually on 4K and in their own collections. I believe this is the first Steelbook collection, and I think there was only certain retailers that also maybe included the Blu-rays. So as you saw here, you get the 4K disc and the Blu-ray disc, which there are a couple of exclusive special features on the Blu-ray disc, and like a picture-in-picture commentary and like an Easter egg that I found that I'll note in my physical or my written review. But so these are the exact same 4K discs that were first released in, I believe, in 2017. They were first released, but they are really good discs. They have Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos upgrades. There are a few shots in the first one that aren't quite the best, but I think it might be more source related than any kind of like compression issues. But overall, these look really solid. Really great use of Dolby Atmos. Not a ton of special features, but you get them all ported over, including a commentary track for the first film, some deleted scenes for both, a gag reel for the second one, and a 35-minute making of for the second film as well. So if you don't own these films, this is a nice, compact, really cool package. I really like the packaging, like how it looks like a dossier. I really love that. Like I said, this is available exclusively at Walmart right now, and I think it's worth checking out if you're a fan and you do not own these. It's a really cool package.
Nice. I have never seen those. I again mixed things, heard mixed things. Wasn't sure if it would be my cup of tea, but that might also be another like try before you buy. But it looks like a really nice collection, especially if you don't own them already. So my next title is one that was I wasn't really sure I wanted to watch or request or anything, but
Mhm.
here we are. It's the Beekeeper, and here is and back. And you know, you have to protect the hive.
Of course.
Protect the hive.
Mhm.
They say that I think 30,000 times in this movie. So I went in with an open mind. When I'm trying to think what movie we went to see, my husband and I, and he saw like they played the trailer, and he's like, "That looks so stupid." Um, and I definitely heard mixed things, but I wanted to give it a proper try. And it's funny because this movie kind of makes me think of like Meg, which also
Mhm.
has Jason Statham in it, where, and maybe you know where I'm going with this, but it wants to be serious, but it wants to be campy, and it wants to have its cake and eat it too. But there's a world where you can do that, but the writing just is not clever enough. Like this really feels like I don't I'm trying to think the best way to put it. It's like John Wick if you got it off Wish. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have it has that similar setup, but it doesn't have like it attempts some world building. I will say it does. But it's so ridiculous. It's so stupid that like you just want it to really embrace that stupidness. But it doesn't. And it just comes off really wooden and pretentious, and it's like far too long than it really needs to be. I think it clocks in at like an hour 45, 40 something, and it can easily be just under an hour and a half. Like the pacing just kills this movie, but it's so earnest, and it's like bees and the beekeepers are a thing, and they're like a secret organization, and I'm like, who fucking cares? And no, they're not. And it's like less cool since he actually is a beekeeper.
Mhm.
So what I'm wondering is like, was he a beekeeper before this, and then he became like a beekeeper? Like, what are y'all doing? I don't know. There are parts that I really like. There's parts where I feel like this feels like an old school 80s or 90s action film. But then again, it doesn't embrace that sort of like campiness like say a Crank would do. Another Jason Statham movie.
Mhm.
Um that's just all my film references now. It doesn't have that like it's silly and ridiculous, but it's okay because you're supposed to think this is silly and ridiculous. It's not like Jeremy Irons, I
Oh
think.
yeah, yeah.
Like he's in a room with like these hardcore ex-military guys, maybe former or current military guys, and he's like eloquently talking about like bees and how like the colony and the hive and all this metaphor shit. I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, just give me the action, give me what people want. I don't need you philosophizing about bees. There's just so much bee talk. It's fucking wild. There's a YouTube channel that I absolutely
Is
love.
it bananas?
What's that?
Is it bananas?
It, yeah. Wah, wah. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the buzz on this wasn't really that but no, it's I just wish they would have like condensed this down into a more, like I said, a crank style kind of thing where it feels a little bit more fun. I mean, when they do hit the action beats, it really goes hard, and I appreciate that. Like those are the parts I liked about this. I didn't think this is the worst, but it really like the dialogue is just so goddamn bad. But it's not fun bad. Like they're not in on the joke. This is clearly David Ayer's like John Wick without any of the charm, any of the like really charismatic lead. I mean, I like Jason Statham, but he can't carry a movie like this. I'm sorry. Like I don't think, I don't know. I don't. Uh, like, I mean, there's so many plot holes too. But anyways, this isn't a great release. I think it looks great. It is a newer movie, so the up convert's gonna look really nice. Sounds good. I wish that there had been like a commentary track or some like interesting like kind of like features, but we don't really get that here. So if you just want to own the movie, it looks fine. I mean, this is another one I would maybe try before you buy because I don't think it was very good, but I don't know. It's by far not the worst film of that I've seen this year, but it's just I think it's frustrating because there's so much potential for a really fun throwback action film, but it just takes itself far too seriously. So that's kind of where it kills me. But I don't know.
No, that's another one that I've just gotten in this week, but I haven't been able to check out yet. So I don't know where it lands on the guilty pleasure scale of like genuinely terrible, so bad it's good, or genuine masterpiece, which I really doubt
Yeah,
that one. So I
I
guess
mean
we'll see.
yeah, like it sways. Like there's parts where I'm like, oh, this is cool, and I'm very into this, and then it's like, oh, it's just a bunch of really dumb dialogue and people just sitting around talking and them trying to bolster this world building, which like I don't fucking care. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know. I mean, it's not a complete waste of time. There's definitely a lot of fun, yeah, with it. So
Yeah, David Ayer is a little bit more than a little bit inconsistent, so I'm gonna have my expectations in check when I go into this one.
The bees go buzzing one by one, hurrah!
I know it was financially successful, but critically, I think it was a little bit more uneven. So
yeah.
I look forward to checking it out myself. Speaking of critically uneven films, this was deemed a bomb. Like it said, it sunk a studio whenever it came out. This is a notoriously bad movie, but I wanted to check it out for myself, especially now that it's getting a release on 4K from Lionsgate. Once again, exclusively at Walmart. This is Cutthroat Island with Gina Davis, Frank Langella, and Matthew Modine. And you can see this cool cover art. No more bandana and eye patch. So that's the back. I like that. You have hanging from the rocks. And then here's the stacked disc. You get like a wanted poster over here. And I'll show the other disc art that's underneath the 4K and Blu-ray disc. It's a desk with a burning candle on it and a skull, which you can kind of see here. So that's all together here. So a really nice package for this movie that many people would probably argue does not deserve such a lavish package. I don't completely agree with that. This is far from a masterpiece, but I can say that this does not deserve its reputation as like the worst movie ever. I think it's a decent movie with some really. It had a bunch of bad breaks during production. Like it was originally supposed to star Michael Douglas, and he got replaced like a week before production by Matthew Modine, which was not exactly an upgrade. And then there was also all kinds of stuff with like production stop downs and all kinds of like issues with weather and sets burning down. It was a disaster. So I think there was more than this movie just not being financially successful to this being deemed a disaster. Because Titanic was also a movie that was deemed a disaster, but then it became a financial hit. This just wasn't enough of a hit to kind of counterbalance that. For the good things about this is it's a pirate tale. It's Gina Davis is the lead as a pirate. She leads a ship. Her father has recently passed away and kind of left clues to this hidden treasure on Cutthroat Island. That's like, it's a typical pirate tale, like hidden treasure that you hear about. She's trying to get this, like all the pieces of this map together. And when she's sailing around trying to collect all these different pieces, she ends up running into Matthew Modine's character, who is just on the verge of being hanged for some crimes that he has committed, but he ends up getting saved by Gina Davis's character. And then Frank Langella is the antagonist, which I've never really thought of Frank Langella as like a daddy, but like he's quite handsome in this movie. So Frank Langella, oof, he's looking good in this movie. But it's your typical high seas pirate shenanigans. It has a good sense of humor about itself. It's basically Pirates of the Caribbean before Pirates of the Caribbean, and there's not as colorful of a character as Jack Sparrow in this. When it's just doing pirate shit, it's pretty fun. It's like, I love the production value of this movie. It has like they built a full ship. You can tell it is a full ship, and they use it to its full effect. There is a cannon battle that you can tell was done practically. Like, it's just really cool to see some of this like pirate stuff going on, and they're visiting real locations, and you don't have all this digital scenery that you have in modern movies. It's just really refreshing to see that type of imagery. Like, just remember what movies used to look like whenever they used to go to like actual locations. Where the movie stumbles is in some of the character development and character choices, namely the romance that they try to have between Matthew Modine and Gina Davis is just non-existent. They do not have chemistry. Anytime they try to have like a sensual moment with one another, or like a flirtatious moment, I just don't believe it. I'm just like, girl, get away from this dude. He is toxic. I do not like this character with you. You deserve so much better. So whenever it's trying to hint at these two getting together and stuff, I'm just like, this dude just seems like kind of a creep, and I do not know why you were trying to force them together. If she had just been like a really like tough pirate, captain of this ship, and not had a love interest, I think it would have been a much cooler movie for it. But that's just, you have to have a love interest, and it just didn't work for this one. But whenever you're not focused on that, and you're just doing some pirate stuff, if you like pirate movies, this is pretty fun. It's just some of the character stuff that doesn't completely work. I love Gina Davis though, so she does well in this, and like, she's great. And like I said, Frank Langella, he is like the perfect level of villainous in this one, and he's just like, he's chewing some scenery, but in a good way. It's just Matthew Modine is just giving nothing. So I like Matthew Modine. Like, he was good in Stranger Things. He's great in Full Metal Jacket. It's just, I don't think he was well cast in this role. So if you have a soft spot for this movie, this is a really great release. This was last released on Blu-ray, I think all the way back in 2009 was its last Blu-ray release, which I think was pretty good for the time. But this has been newly restored in 4K from last year by Studio Canal, from a 4K restoration of the original camera negative, and it looks very nice. It's presented in Dolby Vision, and it has a DTS 5.1 and an LPCM 2.0 stereo track. So I believe it retains its original audio. It doesn't go full Atmos, but it sounds really, really bombastic, and like, there's like, the score is fantastic, and it sounds really rich and full. The cannon fire, like, you feel it still in your bones even without like the Atmos. The low end works very well. I saw some people concerned about the color grade of this early on, because Studio Canal can be a little bit inconsistent in this way. It does have a slight bit of a golden push, but in real, like, when you're watching it, you won't really notice that it like has like a super like yellow push, but just like, it's a hint of just like kind of golden hour type application. So overall, the Dolby Vision looks very nice. It's a really, really nice release. Sound is good. you have some new special features and some archival special features. It ports over the old director commentary, and there's several new interviews. There's a 33-minute, I believe, retrospective on this, which has many of like the director, which is Rennie Harlan, the director of Cliffhanger. It's him, Matthew Modine, and some other cast members reflecting on the movie. There's 3 more interviews that range from 17 to 31 minutes long with like the editor, the composer, and I believe the co-screenwriter. There's a short film from Matthew Modine that I believe was on a previous release that he also provides an optional commentary for. One thing I do want to note about this, which is very weird, I believe the archival special features, this disc was created by Studio Canal, which is based in the UK. I believe they may have encoded this at a PAL frame rate, which means whenever I tried to play the archival special features on my 4K player, I got the sound but no picture. So I think some players are able to decode PAL more easily than others, but if you might not be able to watch the archival special features on your player. So just be aware of that if you do get that anomaly, I think that is what is there's some kind of glitch in the technology and how this was encoded that would probably ideally be fixed, but I doubt it will be. There's not too many archival special features and they're kind of like not that long, but there's enough there that if you can't see it, it's a little bit disappointing. But the new special features are really good. So that's like the only bad thing I would say about this particular title. But if you are a fan, the 4K Steelbook release from Walmart is very, very good. But yeah, a lot of people don't like this movie. They think it is trash, but I think it's fun for a pirate movie. It's just like character development could be much improved.
Do you feel like this movie came out at the wrong time? Do you feel like if it was a little bit earlier or a little bit later?
I think so. I think like I said, the closest analog to this is Pirates of the Caribbean, and that was like a worldwide hit. And I do think if Michael Douglas had not dropped out, I think this probably could have been like worked a little bit better because like I think he would have had a better romance with Gina Davis, and he is a better actor than Matthew Modine. So I think there would have been just a little bit more of a something, and it could have been more along the lines of like a Romancing the Stone type thing. But he did not end up in the movie, and there's a lot of, I don't know. It is a fun movie. It has issues.
Yeah. No, I saw that on the sheet and I was really excited because I had not seen that, but it is very infamous for like being, I guess maybe at the time it was like the biggest flop. It was like it made just lost so much money. But a movie that did not lose money and is awesome is my next title, the 4K Steelbook, and I believe this is also a Walmart exclusive, The Departed. And here is the back with the rats, which I think is really funny because I know like some people think that that's maybe a little too on the nose, like symbolism wise, but
yeah.
So here is some interior artwork, or not artwork, but stills. Yeah, so I really like this movie. I haven't seen it in a long time. It's like the most Boston movie that ever Bostoned. And if that grates on you like it does me, it's a little bit of a chore, but it is undeniably a classic. Scorsese does a really great job of telling a linear narrative, but fragmenting the characters until they finally sort of converge. And I think that's a really cool, interesting way to sort of do it. Jack Nicholson, I know this wasn't his final role, but I mean, to me, it's like his last great, iconic, like, I'm sure he's done other good things after this, but like something that everybody kind of remembers. And weigh in the comments if I'm totally wrong and there was something after this that he's like really famous and well known for. But I don't know. For my money, this was like his defining late career performance. Yeah, it's great. It's just it is like 2.5 hours long, but I think Scorsese does a really good job of utilizing that time really well. You do get a good sense of these characters, where they came from, what their, goals are. I mean, it goes in hard with the homophobic slurs, like so hard. And I don't know, I'm of two minds of it. It doesn't, I'm not automatically like, oh, like, cancel this movie, fuck you. I get this is how people talked back then. It's probably how, I mean, it's how people still talk. But I'm like, does it have to go in that hard with it? I'm like, I get it. You're a tough guy, like little shit like that. I'm like, it's not as creative if you just keep hammering home something like that. And that's like one of the things I think Scorsese is sort of guilty of, is like some of this stuff's a little bit shock value. I mean, they do use other slurs, which I'm not going to mention, obviously, but like, just as a heads up. I mean, probably like my only like semi criticism, I think it's just not as sort of all like going in that hard is like totally necessary. But yeah, it's a great movie. As far as how it looks, I think this is certainly a really nice upgrade from the previous Blu-ray, which I think is, yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah, I don't think it's been upgraded since like it came out in like 2007 or 8. Like it's an old Blu-ray.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, this looks really great. I know they also have a standalone non-steelbook edition if you're not into steelbooks. But yeah, I think overall this is a really nice 4K master. It doesn't feel like it is overly HDR to death. You do have a really nice amount of film grain. It's not a hugely like visual movie, but the colors do really pop pretty nicely. Black levels are really nice. Skin tones look really good as well, nicely balanced. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is maybe like some of Warner Brothers' best work as far as like a transfer upgrade. Like it's almost, I don't know if I want to say night and day, but I mean it's pretty darn close to being like just worlds better than the previous release. So sounds really good. We get a DTS HD 5.1 master that is really good. This is way better than the lossless audio from the Blu-ray. And yeah, it's a great action movie. You really going to want like a bump up in the audio. So really great in that department as well. I believe this just kind of ports over the other extras. I don't recall anything like super noteworthy new on this disc, but yeah, I mean, for the upgrade in picture alone, if you have 4K and 4K compatible, like, yeah, this is a great release.
Yeah, that has been one of my most wanted 4K titles for many, many years. I've been waiting for this so long. This is kind of a controversial take because I know people say that Scorsese won the Oscar for the wrong movie, but like this is one of my favorite Scorsese movies. I love it, but I think it's probably because it was the first Scorsese movie that I saw in theaters, and I still remember it like so vividly, watching it in theaters and just loving the hell out of it. And just one quick like anecdote that I think like is kind of famous among my friends. In high school, I was like the good kid or whatever. Like I was studious. I always did like I didn't cause trouble or whatever. But in my theater class, like I had a little like a small degree of like freedom with the teacher because I was in good with them. And like we had a substitute one day, and like I brought in a couple of movies that for us to watch during movie day, and one of them was The Departed. And like to the substitute's credit, she let me get further in than I thought she would before she made me turn it off with all the F bombs that were going off. But during the Marky Mark like tirade of F bombs in that office and stuff, she finally was just like, okay, we need to turn this off. And I was like, oh man, like but I was surprised we watched as much of The Departed in high school as I got out. But I love The Departed, and I am so excited to check out this disc. I've been wanting for it to be upgraded forever, and I'm glad to hear that Warner did a good job with that. Even if there are no new special features, I think like this is so deserving of a 4K. I'm so excited. I'm doing 2 titles right now. So these are 2 titles from one of my favorite labels, Radiance Films. They always make me so happy. So my first title, real quick, I'm going to talk about the Italian film Misunderstood, which I'll take out that little OBI strip that like has all the information and covers up. So here's the strip that has all the information, and this is what the artwork looks underneath here. And I believe it's reversible cover art, which I'll show off as well. So this is an Italian film based on a pretty famous novel, which the Luigi Comencini adapted for the screen. And I will get into that here in a little bit. So that's the disc is here, and then you have a booklet here. So I'm not going to spoil this movie because that would be rude, but I would just say this movie is very sad. And so prepare yourself if you watch this movie. I won't say in what way it is sad. It's just it's a sad movie. But it's because it starts out with a man coming home having lost his wife. She had like fallen ill, and he had lost his wife, and his 2 young sons are off staying with someone, and he's kind of like getting ready for them to return home. And one of them is, I believe there's like a 10-year-old and like a 6 or 7-year-old. That might be the wrong ages, but there's one that's a little bit older. And whenever these kids return home, he's of the mind that like the older kid can handle it, but the younger kid cannot handle hearing the news about his mother right now. So he's just not going to tell the younger kid. He tells the older kid that like his mom has passed away and not to tell his younger brother. The older kid, he kind of puts on a brave face and just kind of like, he's like, yes, I will do this for you, Dad. But this really leads down a road where his father praises him for being so strong, but it leads to a very toxic dynamic where this kid, he feels like he has to hide his true feelings. And it really kind of, you see this manifest throughout the rest of the story of where his dad is giving all of this attention to the younger kid because he thinks that like he needs to kind of be there for him and be compassionate, like love him extra because he's younger and needs it, while the older sibling is strong and like he's doing okay. But this leads to this older sibling feeling neglected, and it's not very overt, but you can see how this kid starts acting out and kind of like resenting his little brother, and then also trying to get his dad's attention in like sometimes harmful ways. And the way this kind of manifests in this family drama, it just crushes your heart because you feel so badly for this young kid who is just kind of being overlooked because he's being taken for granted. He is misunderstood, like as the title says. He's fine, he's stoic, he's good, but he's not. And it's very heartbreaking. It's a very touching movie, but it guts you to the core. This is a really good release. I believe it is the worldwide debut on Blu-ray. This does come from a 2K restoration of the original camera negative. I will say, compared to other Radiance releases, this is a little bit more inconsistent, I think, because of the source material. And that when it looks good, it looks great. But there are small stretches where I think the source material was not in ideal shape, because you get like some like weird stretches of discoloration where you just see kind of like, you can see where like the film is like running through and like kind of almost like wavy, and it's like colors and stuff. And I've seen some similar discoloration and stuff in like silent films and kind of like films that don't have really great source for restoration. A lot of it is light, and you kind of like, you're like not really sure if you're even seeing it, but it is there. And then sometimes it is more overt. So I think this was probably a situation where they either release it as is with like some minor imperfections, or you don't release it at all. And I think they made the right decision to release it because I don't think it's majorly distracting. But I do want to note that there are some pretty major instances of like wear and tear and damage in this. It's just not like huge chunks of film missing. It's more so just variances in aesthetic and color. But overall, it's still a good release. You do have the original Italian mono audio, which sounds great. You do get a 24-minute appreciation piece and then another 35-minute interview, which both add to kind of the context of the source material and the adaptation and where it fits into this filmmaker's filmography, all that stuff. So Misunderstood is a really sad but really rewarding one from Radiance Films. And then we have the other title coming out at this time from Radiance, and that is The Shape of Night, which is a Japanese film from 1964. And I will once again remove that OBI strip to reveal the artwork underneath, which I always think it's a pretty cool thing that they use that strip to get around making the artwork obscured, because I think it's nice to just kind of have this clean aesthetic. I think that's really collector minded, and it's not one that I see a lot of labels do. I mean, you get your J cards, but it still feels a little bit different. And then you have this reversible cover art that I'm trying to put in gently. So here you go. Some nice cover art, and then you got the disc in here, and then a booklet which I'll show off. Once again, you always get pretty cool essays and restoration notes and newly translated interviews with some of the filmmakers and sometimes, so some really good information in here. These are always available with the first printing, so if you don't want to miss out on those, get those before the first printing runs out. So The Shape of Night, it's a familiar tale, but it's the way it's told that kind of changes things. It's about a young girl who she's like college age. She's going to like a design school, I believe, but she's also working at night at like a club or like a kind of a bar type area. And then one night a patron comes in who she kind of starts to have a flirtation with, who she ends up going out on a date with. What she does not realize that is he is a member of the Yakuza. He's more of a low-ranking member, and he kind of uses his influence over her to slowly force her into prostitution. Because he's like, hey, I really need money, and like if I don't get some money, I will be hurt and stuff. So will you please sleep with this man just this one time? And she's like, no, I don't want to do that. And she's like, well, if you really love me, you'll do it. And then she gives in. And then it just becomes like a thing where it keeps escalating, and he keeps forcing like her into this. And it's once again, it's another heartbreaking film in a different way than Misunderstood, but it still kind of really breaks your heart to see this girl who has such promise kind of be swept up in this role of this world. We're all for sex work when it's consenting, but when you're kind of like basically forced into this by the Yakuza, that's not a good look. So like non-consensual sex work, no thank you. So just seeing this character's journey and like her shitbag boyfriend, her just getting all wrapped up in this life, it's very heartbreaking, but it's very engaging, and I think the filmmaker handles it very tastefully. It's not super exploitative. You don't see like a lot of like hardcore nudity or anything like that. It's just as much of as a movie about prostitution can be tasteful. It does it within that context. I've seen it labeled alongside like certain like pink films, but I wouldn't really label it that. So if you're in it for like the exploitation side, I think could be disappointed. But overall, it's a good tale, and it's really strong performances. And so it's not my favorite Radiance films I've seen just because of the content. It just doesn't particularly like super engage me, but I think it's well done. And if you're into this type of narrative or Japanese films in general, I think there's something there for you. This restoration is very nice. You do get a HD presentation that was provided by the film company. I believe it's Shachiku. They provide the HD transfer. It looks very nice. It's pretty detailed, pretty solid black levels, no overt damage or anything. It looks very nice. And then you have a 16-minute interview with the director's son, who kind of gives some context to where his father was at this time and his relationship with the studio. And then you get another 13-minute piece on the studio itself and how it kind of evolved with the death of Ozu back in like the 50s, I believe he passed away, and how those studio transitioned and kind of to more of this kind of like exploitation-ish genre and stuff. So, and how the movies kind of evolved. So that's a really interesting piece, like a Japanese history that's on this disc. So The Shape of Night, it's a good film. You have to be kind of in the right mood because it is kind of a bummer, but it's a good release. So both of these from Radiance Films, they put out some good ones this month. So I'd recommend them.
Nice. Yeah, they are always great. It seems like even some of their lesser titles are still really worth checking out.
Mm-hmm.
So, speaking of labels that we both really like, I have a pair from Warner Archives, and that is, I believe this is the first time they've done this too. It's the Silent Classics double feature. So we have the Boob and Why Be Good, and yeah, so um, one of which stars a very young Joan Crawford, which I thought was really cool. So yeah, we'll start with the Boob. I think that's the one with Joan Crawford in it. She has kind of a small-ish role. And yeah, it's kind of about this sort of all shucks farm boy who really likes this woman named Amy, but he's sort of competing for her attention, and all these like shenanigans ensue. And the film also tries to kind of capture that sort of mid to late 20s like flapper era kind of vibe. And incidentally, like those are the kind of movies that made like Joan Crawford like a huge star. It's a comedy, it's fine. I think the running gags are a little corny, I think, even for the time. Especially when you sort of stack this up against stuff like with Buster Keaton or some of the other like Charlie Chaplin, where like the gags were really well crafted and really meticulously planned out. This not so much, but it's still funny. I mean, it's just like, again, the humor is like, one of the gags was a guy's at a restaurant trying to, I guess it's like an olive or something on his plate, and he can't quite get it with his fork, and they do like some cool like stop motion to make it just at one point it just is possessed and it's just rolling around on his plate. It's just like but I mentioned it because that's kind of like the level of sort of like gags we get. But it is kind of cool seeing like Joan Crawford really young. She might not even be billed. I can't recall. I don't recall if she's billed under her actual name or Joan Crawford was a stage name. Why Be Good, I think, is probably the one of the better films out of the two films. You can tell right away that there's more dynamic, there's more energy, there's a lot more like interesting sort of like stuff going on composition wise. I think like it's not strictly a comedy, like there's funny stuff going on, but it's more of a romance kind of drama thing. Some of it is definitely pretty sketch, but I guess it's fine for the time. I like silent comedies, but I feel like unless they're really really well done as far as like their pratfalls, their like gags and stuff, it's a little bit of a chore. Again, I think the second feature is the stronger of the two. Unfortunately, there is not any like special features. When I was researching these titles, I know Leonard Maltin had done a maybe featurette on maybe I think it was Why Be Good, talking about how even though this is a silent film, the background music and the uses of jazz was really pretty like mind blowing for the time. Or maybe it was the Boob. I can't remember which that he, but it would have been nice to have that as like supplemental material. This would have been amazing for like commentary tracks on this era of filmmaking and culturally where we were in this point in the 20s. But alas, we don't. But these are certainly not perfect restorations, but also give them a break. I mean, these are like 26 and 29. So I mean, these are like almost 100 years old. So I think considering that fact, they do look really, really nice. Like there is like some damage and there is like, a lot of like debris and stuff, but for the most part, where it can be cleaned up, it really does look like they've taken care of restoring these films. I know one of these was actually considered a lost film for a long time. Why Be Good was only found in the 90s. So, considering the fact that this was thought to be completely gone, it's stunning to have this and looking nice and on Blu-ray. So, again, Warner Archive crushing it. I hope they do more of these sets. Also noteworthy, they're both on one disc, but considering the fact that like each like the one title is 61 minutes long and the other is 81 minutes long, it's really not that big of a deal if they share one disc. And I do think it kind of keeps costs down to produce a second disc. And again, I think the transfers, especially given the limitations of how old they were and how the original elements are probably not that well taken care of, it looks really great. So yeah, maybe not the best silent film comedies, rom-coms, but I had fun, especially if you like Joan Crawford and you worship her like I do and you are a completist. You should definitely try to get this.
Yeah, I had a chance to check that one out, and I quite like them. I like Why Be Good a little bit more than the Boob, but I think they're both pretty solid overall. There are some things that like aren't great, but it's overall they're pretty funny, and I like the stop motion gag. I think it's pretty funny, but overall they're good. I like them. My next title is from Warner Brothers. This is a unique release in that it was first released, I think, back in like 2007 or 8, and it's just being re-released now for reason, I guess, because it might have been out of print, but it's just being but it's the exact same disc. And similar to The Departed, where it was released early on and it had its limitations, you get some of that there, but I'll talk about that. I'm talking about Appaloosa with Ed Harris, Viggo Mortensen, and Renee Zellweger. So you talked about Pollock a few months back, which was Ed Harris's first directorial effort. And this was his follow-up. He hasn't really made any more. I think he has a couple projects on the horizon, but he wanted to follow it up and make this Western tale, which I had seen before, but it had been a long time. So I was interested to revisit it, especially since I've watched a lot more Westerns in the interim and just kind of gauging how it works as a Western. And I think it's more of a mixed bag. I want to like this more than I do. I really love the performance. I love all of them. Ed Harris, he does a good job on screen. Viggo Mortensen, he plays more of like the silent type. Like they're really good friends who are they've been partners for years, you can tell, and they are brought in by this town to basically like clean up the unseemly elements, like this kind of a lawless town. These two are noted gunmen who like they're noble, but like they're hired on like, hey, clean up our town. You can be sheriff. Just get all this in working order. And they're like, okay, fine, we'll do this. And interestingly enough, you mentioned Jeremy Irons earlier. He plays the villain in this one. And I like that aspect of it. Like you have your classic villain and like these heroes coming in to take like clean up the town. That works pretty well. Where this movie goes awry is in how it treats its women, notably Renee Zellweger, who kind of saunters into town and ends up kind of getting mixed up with Ed Harris and ends up marrying him. But she also kind of like is portrayed to, I think they wanted to be like, okay, she is more a morally complex character because she's seemingly just like uh, is like a low grade nymphomaniac because she's like trying to like sleep with his best friend Viggo Mortensen, who's like, nah, I'm good. And but then like she gets kidnapped and like also like starts to proposition the kidnappers, and I'm like, what are you doing to this character? Like it should be more to her than this. And just like you hear Renee Zellweger talking about her character in the special features and how she loved how like I said ambiguous she was, and she's not like a perfect character and everything. And I like that, but the way she is written, I don't think she's given much to do besides just kind of being like, oh, she's doing some like some stuff that you might not agree with and stuff, but like why? Like what is it to her character that it makes her do this, or what else is there to her character besides just being a woman who comes to town who ends up getting married and like kind of begrudges being kind of the wife at home and just like feels a little bit boxed in her position, but then you don't really get into that. And I think that's kind of a weakness of this. Whenever you have like the classic like two friends who are like that's the relationship I love. Like the relationship, their friendship, and like their love for each other, I think is really like they trust one another. As even when people that one of them is like accused of something, they're like, no, that's my dude. I love him. You're not gonna like turn me against him. Like I love that. Jeremy Iron plays a real weasel of a villain, but sometimes he's like quite intimidating. But I've seen so many great westerns recently, especially since they're releasing a lot of like the classics and stuff. And I just rewatched The Magnificent Seven, like the original one, and just like all the ones that we've talked about over the past year or so. Like they're just so much better. And like whenever I watch this, I'm like, it's just not quite up to that level. And I think it's fine, but I don't know. I wish I was getting something more than fine with these characters. But if you're a fan of this film, I think you would also agree that if you're going to re-release this, at least release it on 4K. I don't think it's a big enough title to do that, but I wish this was a 4K release. I think it would be a bigger reason to re-release this. This old Blu-ray, it has an ancient BC1 codec, which is kind of like the old kind of not as stable one. Like we prefer the new ABC encoding. So it's a little inconsistent. It looks fine, but it's definitely a dated looking master. It has Dolby True HD 5.1, so I think it is lossless audio, I believe, if I wrote this down correctly. I think it does have lossless audio, which a lot of these early Blu-ray efforts did not, but this one does. And you have a good number of special features, including a commentary track with Ed Harris, which it's always fun to hear him talk about his films that he's done as a director. That's one of the things I like more so about this release. You have a good amount of deleted scenes and various featurettes about like the location scouting and the cast and all this, all your standard featurettes. So I'm almost positive I've seen this like in a Dollar Tree before. So the fact that this is being re-released and like being like a not the cheapest price, that's kind of like, I don't know. It's available again for people who do want it, but I think if you're going to re-release it, it should have been a 4K. But it's here if you wanted it again. It's just not what I wanted from it, and the movie itself is from it.
Yeah, it's one I've never seen before. But yeah, I'm when you said the Dollar Tree thing, like I'm certain you could find one of those in like those giant like bins of movies that were like, I don't know, $1 a piece or something. So yeah. Now I always like to try to at least my final title end with something that I was really stoked about. And this one was one that I think I might have had like an old Anchor Bay DVD of, but this is the 4K of The Church. But But see, I got so I will say here, there's a slew of features. And this is a dual disc DVD or DVD, yeah, Blu-ray and 4K. And the same director also they've done a beefier version of this and his other movie, The Sect, which is also kind of church based. And Cemetery Man, they're all doing standard editions like this, and then I think most of the like deluxe editions are still available to buy on Severin's website. But if you want like a more affordable, a little bit more stripped down, but you still get a nice array of features, standard edition is really great. So as for the film itself, I think it's a really, I don't know if I want to say fun, but it is definitely a very in your face 80s horror film. It's got a killer goblin soundtrack, which is amazing. This unfortunately does not have a soundtrack available, and maybe the deluxe edition comes with that, but it starts out with like a gory bang. Like there is like it's sort of like a Knights Templar kind of thing, and they're sort of like collecting these women that they think are like demonic and evil, and they're just like massacring people. They like bury all these like so-called like witches, and then they build a church on top of that because they think that will be a really good idea. So it is not. Flash forward to the present. The church is sort of being like there's paintings and like frescoes and stuff that are being restored. And of course, like the intrepid characters go poking around and find some like artifacts that resurrect all the like demons and stuff. And it's all like very pretty standard if you're like a an Italian horror aficionado. You have the like weird dialogue that's maybe just sort of like like a mistranslation, which is always really funny. And yeah, it's got a nice amount of gore. It's not like one of the gorier Italian horror films, but there's like some really nice effects, especially in that like opening like massacre scene that I was talking about. But yeah, it's a good time. I think like pacing kind of kills us a little bit for me, but it's overall pretty enjoyable. It's very weird, and it like embraces that weirdness. Like it's so unapologetically weird and Italian and just nutso. This director also made one of my all-time favorite movies, Cemetery Man, which is the U.S. title. It's like Della Morte, Della More, which has a deluxe version from Severin, but that is also getting a really nice standard edition that's a lot more affordable. If you don't want the, like I said, deluxe edition. So that's on the horizon as well. I'm hoping to be reviewing that one in the future. But yeah, this is a fun movie. Again, the soundtrack is amazing. The special effects are really good. Characters a little stock, but that's sort of par for the course with these movies. And I have to say, I mean, just like arm's length of special features. That's really awesome. As far as how it looks, I'm really happy to report that like this is another film that has not been like digitally scrubbed. It looks really nice. It looks very filmic. Again, talking about that opening scene, like the like how great this looks with like the natural like scenery in the opening, like it is just wonderful. Like it's a really nice balance of like color, but like again, nothing's ever too oversaturated or overblown or blown out. Everything has a really nice balance to it. Black levels are really nicely handled as well. There's a lot of like night scenes and darkly lit scenes that look so much better with this new transfer. Like it's great because like I said, I've only ever had a DVD. It's one of those that I was holding out for a 4K. And gosh darn it, Severin, you hooked us up. And I will also put in the description some of the other titles by this director from Severin because you should definitely check those out as well. But yeah, if you are a big Italian horror fan, you should definitely have this in your collection.
Severin is a little bit hit or miss with me just because sometimes I can get a bit too extreme for me. But given what you're saying about this director, I think I'll probably try some of his movies out and just see how I feel about them, because it sounds pretty interesting, and I think you sold it well. So you sold me on it. So I look forward to checking that one out. My final title, I squeezed in 2 Radiance films so I could end with this title because I wanted to end with a bang, because I knew like this is one for you. I'm doing this for you. This is the new Arrow Video release. It is the 4K release of Basket Case, Frank Henenlotter, who you've talked about several times on this show. First off, I love this slipcase. Like, if you can see, like, it's like shiny with the title, and then like just like the wicker basket and the finger. It's just great. I love this. And then you take that off, and you have this underneath the original artwork. I'm not sure if it has reversible cover art besides this. It does, so I'll show that off. So you talked about, like I said, Frank Henenlotter before. I think, did he do Bad Biology?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
And I know he did like Frankenhooker and stuff, which I had not seen any of these movies. This was my first Henenlotter film, to my knowledge. And it's an interesting one. So here's the reversible cover art here, which I almost kind of like this a little bit more because it's a little bit less spoilery, but I still think it's both are cool. Looks like we have a unfoldable poster, so you get both here. So this big boy here and here. And then you have a booklet here and here with essays and restoration notes and all that good stuff. And I'm not sure. I don't think I showed off the disc artwork, so I'll show that off here. So yeah, I'm going to be very vague with my description because I went into this blind and I thought it was a little bit more fun. But I know probably a lot of our audience has already seen this because you're a bunch of sick freaks, and I know we all seek all that out. So this is a tale of a seemingly well-adjusted young man who comes to, I believe it's New York City, and gets himself a seedy hotel room, and he's carrying around a strange basket. And I will just say there is a creature in it. I will not go any further as to the identity of, you already seen glimpses of, but or what all this is. But this young man doing things around the city while trying to take care of the thing in his basket, and just trying to exist basically, and like trying not to wreak havoc, but also trying to, like, he's on a mission of revenge and stuff, which you kind of get all the gory details about. And this is a wild movie. It's a good mixture of like horrific, like great like special effects work and like horror with like really, really dark comedy and stuff. And just the tone that this film takes it's fascinating. But I did like it quite a bit, and I really love the special effects work. Is even whenever it's not just like the creature like sitting on like a flat surface, whenever they try to, it looked to be like a kind of like a stop motion animation type situation to get it moving around. I thought that was really inventively handled, and I think it added to the charm of this movie, where you're just like, this is being shot in like a very budget conscious way. Like, I think they're spending most of their budget on creating this creature, but like everything turns out to be very like looking very like appropriately grimy for this era of New York City. But it's a strangely beautiful film in a certain way, like in its grotesque nature. And like even like it's whenever people are being attacked and you see like all their gashes and stuff, it renders very well. It's very cool. And not all the performances are great, but there's a charm to that as well. Like the receptionist who has like this attraction to the, like, she's not a great actress, but I liked her vibe. I liked I liked what she was doing. And like whenever she would like go back, like it was like she sees something that disturbs her, but then she like wants to go back and like check on the guy. I was just like, what, girl, get away. What are you doing? But anyway, this is a wild time. I think it's a fun discovery. If you're a horror fan, you need to like see it at least once to see how you feel about it. But I think it's a lot of like dark comedic fun, with great special effects. And so this is my first time owning it. It's my first time seeing it. This 4K presentation is spectacular. I really liked it. It blew my mind seeing the restoration notes at the beginning saying this was restored by MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art. But if they think it's art, we think it's art. So like this has been given a 4K restoration from the original, I believe it's 16 millimeter negatives. It's been given a really pristine restoration. It removes pretty much all the damage and stuff. There's some pretty thick grain, but it's 16 millimeter. You expect that. It's not been scrubbed over. It's just like it keeps its original look. Even like any like I said, the stop motion kind of shots, you don't see a lot of variance in like the aesthetic. It's just a very nice, consistent transfer with Dolby Vision, which this is not the most colorful film. It's a lot of dark corners and like seedy New York locales, but that's not all Dolby Vision's for. Like the bright colors, you want like dark, rich black, like blacks where it's like you see details in the shadows and stuff. Like it helps with that kind of contrast, which is really nice. The few instances of just like daytime exteriors, those also look very nice. It retains the original audio. You have two commentary tracks, one that's kind of newer, and then like a older one with Hindenlauder, I believe. You get tons and tons of special features. I'm still going through them all, but like whenever you have to like click through like 2 or 3 arrows to get through all of them, like there's a ton of special features on here. And one that I wanted to know was there's like a 79-minute documentary on like the Basket Case franchise. And that's just one of many interviews and featurettes and like behind the scenes, like special effects stuff. Like it's packed to the gills. So you'll see that in my full written review. But if you're a Hindenlauder fan, I know they've been upgrading some of his stuff to 4K. Basket Case, it's been handled very well by Arrow Video. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Definitely worth checking out.
Nice. I definitely pre-ordered that like immediately. Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorite movies, and like Frank is such a cool guy. Watching this makes me a little sad because like there's some people that are sadly passed away. I knew Beverly Bonner well. I went to her she had a comedy show, stage show where Frank had given her permission to use her Casey character for this like kind of interesting little stage show, and I went to that. I went to a couple of those. One that was really cool was, and it was really special because I don't know if this was like the last time that all these people were together, but it was such a cool show because that night Frank was in attendance, Kevin, um, along with Beverly, of course, and they did she actually got Frank and Kevin up to do a skit with Belial, and it's a really special moment because like I always wished like somebody would have recorded that. I would love to see if somebody had like a copy of that somewhere, but it was such a cool moment. And yeah, and then I got to like hang out with him a little bit at his place in New York, in the Village. That was so cool. He was actually editing a movie when I came to visit, and so he pulled up his the movie that he was like color correcting and doing some things, and it was neat because he was like showing me scenes, and he's like, "All right, well, there's going to be a sound effect here. They're dropping this here. I'm tweaking this color. Oh, this scene we shot, blah blah blah, and this actor, blah blah blah." And I was like, it dawned on me, I'm like, I'm getting like live commentary from like the editing bed. Like that was so freaking cool.
Yeah.
But Frank's like one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. No ego, really cool. The second time I saw him in New York was like the last brick and mortar Kim's video was closing up. So they had like a liquidation sale. So it was visit Frank Henenlotter, hit Kim's video. You had the real grimy New York experience. So yeah, I'm so excited for this release. If y'all like this title, I know Arrow has done Brain Damage, and that's a really excellent release. I of course have that one as well. I'm kind of holding out for a 4K of Frankenhooker. That's the only one that I don't have on Blu-ray. Just because I know now there's like everyone's hitting 4K. Like as soon as I just get a Blu-ray, I'm gonna have to upgrade it again. So I don't know. I haven't heard any rumblings about that, but I would be shocked if we don't get Frankenhooker on 4K in the next 5 years. But yeah, I'm glad that you finally watched this. The sequels
Yeah.
are much weirder, if you can believe that.
Okay.
They introduced like a new like mother type character, which I think is kind of cool, and it doesn't have the same level of quality and charm as Basket Case, the sequels, but they're fun. I feel like if you ever have a chance to watch them, if they're streaming anywhere, I don't recall since I own them, but I think Shutter might actually have those. But yeah, they're a lot of fun. I'm actually kind of hoping that we get a Basket Case 2 and 3 on 4K in the
Yeah.
future. I mean, just every Henenlotter film. You mentioned Bad Biology, that has a deluxe edition from Severin, and I believe a standard edition's coming out, a 4K of that as well. So if you want to enhance your filthiness with some more Henenlotter, which I highly recommend. Oh, if y'all watch Peacemaker, James Gunn shouts out Henenlotter with a Henenlotter video store,
Nice.
which is pretty awesome. So, anyways, that is our show, and so starting in next week, we will be well, the Video Attic will be moving over to my new channel, the Pop Culture Corner, where I will be still your fearless oddball host, telling you about some really great home video releases. So that won't change, but yeah, still check out everything that Geek Vibes Nation does, website and YouTube channel. They're always posting a really amazing stuff, and check out my channel as well. Again, if you want to follow me over to my channel with this, that would be great. And as always, thank you so much for hanging out with us.